On this episode of the Contagious Influencers of America podcast, they're known to ruffle some feathers. It's the comedic geniuses behind the Babylon Bee.
During the lockdowns, we said celebrities spell out, we're all in this together with their yachts. and it got fact checked. People thought it was real.
Well, if you love you some good satire, this episode is for you. I'm David Sams, your host of CIA Contagious Influences of America. My guests today, well, I've got Kyle Mann and Joel Berry. These are the two guys, actually the editor-in-chief and the managing editor of the Christian news satire site, the Babylon Bee. Now, this is a very popular site. They've got something like 15 million page views weekly and 1.5 million followers on both Instagram and Twitter. But for those of you unfamiliar with the site, it's sort of like The Onion, but with a Christian political twist. Dubbing themselves fake news you can trust, the Babylon Bee is sure to make you laugh, or at least find the humor and the irony in life. But Kyle and Joel, they're also best-selling authors. Their first book was The Babylon Bee Guide to Wokeness, and now their latest release is called The Postmodern Pilgrims Progress. It takes John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress and puts a whole new modern, humorous twist on it. In fact, it's currently number one on the bestseller list for religious humor at Amazon. So we talk about the book and we talk about some satire they put out, but in true CIA fashion, that's right, true CIA podcast fashion, we also go deeper. We also talk about the importance of being able to not take yourselves too seriously, getting out of your comfort zones, and how to positively change the world. And these guys, I just can't wait to feature them. They'll be on in just a second. But first, I got to ask you, it's hard to miss. Prices for food, fuel, and homes are still on the rise in the country today. Boy, are they ever. And interest rates, same thing. But, you should just stop the hesitation, folks, and make the move to see what's best for you in regards to your home. See if a cash out refinance is for you or whatever. I'm going to turn you on to a couple of folks at Fellowship Home Loans that they are just, I've known these guys for 8-9 years now, and they will really run those numbers for you and see what the best option is for you. So why not give my friends Mike and Brian a call at Fellowship Home Loans at 800-804-SAVE. That's 800-804-7283. And let them do a thorough check of the numbers and see what the market's like where you are and see what the best path is for you. The Fellowship Home Loans team they'll take the time to listen and help you live the dream for less. So give them a call at 800-804-SAVE. That's 800-804-7283. Or visit fellowshiphomeloans.com. Intercontinental Capital Group, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Opportunity Lender, in MLS number 60134. Now let's get to my interview with Kyle Mann and Joel Berry of the Babylon Bee. Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
How we doing?
Doing good.
Doing good.
So the first question I got to ask you guys is, as we're doing this interview, how do I know if you're telling me the truth or not?
We'll add a laugh track at the end if we're joking.
Okay.
It's a riddle. One of us always tells the truth and the other always lies, and you have to figure out.
Oh, that's like the old TV show, To Tell the Truth. Yeah. There you go. Hey, first of all, let me have you guys introduce yourselves, and I'd love to know a little bit about how you met.
Yeah, sure. I'm Kyle. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee, and I got involved with Babylon Bee 6 years ago when it launched, and I've been doing it full time for 3 years now. And then we discovered Joel. He was submitting headlines to the Babylon Bee through our subscriber forum, and we started having him pitch more, and then eventually we hired him as the managing editor of the Babylon Bee.
Fantastic, and let's pass the baton here.
Yeah, so my name's Joel. I'm the managing editor. I started off just as a huge fan of the Bee. I think, like many people, I I glommed onto their church humor very early on, and just thought it was genius, and just took as many opportunities as I could to submit ideas, submit headlines, and one thing led to another. And before long, I was just kind of doing it full time anyway, and I think they just eventually were like, well, I guess we might as well hire you. You're already here full time. So they decided to just give me a paycheck to go with it.
Oh, fantastic! So, Kyle, tell me the explosive growth that you've seen with Babylon Bee. Was that something you guys expected in the beginning, or is it how did that all happen?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, Adam Ford launched the Babylon Bee March 1st, 2016, and he did kind of expect it to be a side project for him. At the same time, he launched it because he thought it was a good idea that, he really did see this gap in the marketplace where there wasn't anything that was commenting on culture, especially like just kind of with the rapidity and the kind of savage humor that the Babylon Bee has come to be. He didn't see anything like The Onion that was making the points that he wanted to be made. So yes, it was unexpected how it was just immediate viral overnight growth where we didn't have to pay a dime for advertising. It was just all word of mouth, all people sharing stuff on Facebook and Twitter or whatever. At the same time, there was like, Adam's is a bit of a genius and kind of did know like if we have to be the first ones to do this because someone else is going to.
Yeah. And now you gentlemen previously wrote a book, right? The Babylon Bee Guide to Wokeness.
Yeah.
And how did that do?
It did really well. It sold out, I want to say, within the first few weeks of it being released. And that was kind of in the middle of all those supply chain issues. So it took months and months for them to get more books into the stores. We expected it to do pretty well, but we were shocked at how well it ended up doing. I think it was just a timely thing. Wokeness was a big part of the cultural conversation at the time. And it's fun. We're following it up this year as well. We're going to have a Babylon Bee Guide to Democracy, which is even funnier than the first book, I think. So we're pretty excited about that.
Fantastic. And you now have the Postmodern Pilgrims Progress. Let's talk about that. That's your current book.
Yeah, so that's our first novel, our first narrative. It was actually Kyle's brainchild. I'll let you kind of hear his story on it.
Yeah, well, Joel's being modest. He was a large part of what made it come to be. But yeah, I had this concept for a long time, and it's been done before at various times. Like the Pilgrims Regress was something that C.S. Lewis wrote. And I've seen a couple of modernizations of the Pilgrim's Progress, but most of the time they're just like a language smoothing over, or maybe an update in terms of the setting. Like they'll make it a little bit more modern, but nobody's really, as far as I can tell, done something like what we've done here, which is to take the general framework of what Bunyan did. You have Christian's journey to the celestial city. And the framework of what he does is so cool because he takes all the different voices and culture that Christians were coming up against at the time, and he just makes them personified in different characters in Pilgrim's Progress. So we wanted to do that same thing, but with just update the kinds of voices that we are hearing in the culture. Obviously, Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress still remains hugely relevant to today. And a lot of the characters that Christian encountered are still the types of people we encounter in the church. But we were able to get a little more specific about things that are in the zeitgeist that we face. Things like wokeness and humanism is obviously a big thing right now. And then we added the layer of kind of typical Babylon Bee humor and commentary, and added a sci-fi twist and a fun multiverse angle, and it just became this crazy thing that just evolved into so much more than I had ever envisioned it being.
Yeah.
So give listeners the elevator pitch for this book. When they pick it up, what are they gonna what's the storyline, and what are they gonna learn?
Yeah, so I guess in a nutshell, it's kind of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets Pilgrim's Progress. I would venture a guess this is probably the first retelling of Pilgrim's Progress that includes aliens with laser pinchers and squid creatures and multiverse hopping and things like that. So we made it fun, but I think the thing that I'm most excited about is I think just how it speaks to what a lot of Christians are going through today. As our institutions seem to fail us, our leaders are failing and falling into scandal all around us. Tragedy strikes often with no explanation, and people are left wondering why. And I think that we really kind of reflected the world and a lot of the questions that Christians are facing in their walks today. And I hope that it becomes an encouragement to people, anyone who reads it, whether they're Christian or not. I hope that it glorifies God and points people to Him in what's a very tough time in our culture right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, are you two in? I realize you're at home or whatever right now. Are you two in two different locations, geographical locations, or do you live next door to each other?
No, I'm in Southern California, and Joel is in Ohio for some reason.
Oh, hey! I'm a Buckeye, so let's not cut. Don't go there.
It's not
on
true.
Purpose. He's there on purpose. I'm told.
So what's it like to collaborate and write a book like this? How do you do that when you're a couple thousand miles apart?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't know how common it is to co-write a novel. A nonfiction, maybe. Novels are very, they have a flow to them. They have a prose, and so to make it work, Kyle and I had to outline the story first. I think that was really important for the process, just determining what the story beats were going to be, who the characters were going to be. It obviously with a little room to play around within that framework, but we outlined the story first. We kind of broke up what chapters we wanted to write, and then we kind of came back together at the end and made sure everything was harmonious and flowed as best as it could. But I thought it was fun. We kind of have obviously we have a similar worldview and sensibilities, and I thought it worked really well. At least I do. Kyle, I don't know.
Yeah, Joel wrote a lot, and then I fixed everything that he wrote, and that was basically the process.
He made it funny. Yeah.
Why do you think the Babylon Bee gets so much attention? I mean, obviously, it is what it is. It's great. It's very timely, very topical. But they don't pick on Saturday Night Live whenever they pick on somebody. How come they pick on you guys?
Yeah, we're saying the things that that Saturday Night Live isn't saying. We're going after the taboo topics that other comedians and mainstream comedians aren't going after. It's as simple as that. I think early on, whenever we faced like censorship or things getting deleted, I gave the fact checkers and the social media types the benefit of the doubt. It was just kind of like, well, we're not that persecuted and we're going to be okay, And as it went on, it became clear that people really do treat us differently than they treat satirists and comedians that are coming from the perspective of the secular left. And it is definitely because we are poking at the cultural power that you're not allowed to poke at. And it's definitely, if you read the way that Snopes fact checks The Onion, it's completely different than the way that Snopes fact checks us. They say that, Babylon Bee is trying to deceive people in this sinister way. Whereas with The Onion, it's like, oh, you're an idiot. You didn't know that The Onion was satire. That's it's a completely different tone. So I think it is because of the worldview that we're making fun of.
So in all of your years with the Babylon Bee, what is the one article, the one post that you wake up and think about every once in a while and still get a good laugh. It's still, I can't believe we got away with that. Which one is it?
My favorite Babylon Bee article is the one where we said during the lockdowns, we said celebrities spell out, we're all in this together with their yachts. And it was a great article. It was perfect and timely, and it really captured the anger everybody was feeling at the time. And it got fact checked. People thought it was real. We had a couple of celebrities that got made fun of in the article that commented on it, and it was kind of cool. Like Patton Oswalt, we made fun of in the article, and he actually shared the article and said, "Okay, this is pretty good. You guys got me on this one." And I always like the power of comedy to kind of unite people, even people that you're making fun of. And that was a pretty neat moment for us.
Yeah, I think that's always rewarding when you can make the other side laugh. That's always really fun.
Well, let's talk about that a minute, because comedy is now this has got to be the roughest time in history, at least since I've been on this planet, to be a comedian and try to get away with what. I mean, I remember the nights. I remember the days that I would watch the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Oh my gosh! Now they have a Carson channel on Pluto TV, and it's like everything is politically incorrect, but they still air it. So, what do you tell young comedians today that are trying to do their thing, but at the same time they end up having to censor themselves just because they don't want to be thrown to the wolves?
Well, it's tough. I mean, we as Babylon Bee writers kind of have it easy in the sense that we don't have to get up on stage and get tackled like Dave Chappelle does. So the comedians who are actually up on stage in front of people, potentially putting themselves on harm's way, I have a lot of respect for those folks. I mean, anyone in comedy right now, the comedians who seem to be most relevant right now are the ones that are not self-censoring, the ones that are stirring up some controversy. And that's kind of the way it's always been. I mean, like Ricky Gervais told some trans jokes in a recent Netflix stand-up special. And the media response has been just one of pearl clutching and just freaking out about the trans jokes. And, I think it's made him a much more powerful voice, and it's made him more relevant. So I think if you're in comedy right now, the best thing you can do is go for it. Poke at those sacred cows that no one else is willing to poke at.
Why is getting out of the comfort zone important in the life of a Christian?
Getting outside of our comfort zone in terms of comedy, or just in terms of like life? There's a few different ways that. Go ahead. Yeah, let's just talk about having something to say and say it without being worried that you're going to be knocked down 10 notches or thrown to the wolves. Yeah, I figured being us, that's what you were talking about, but I mean, every joke you tell is a balance. Every joke you tell is a balance between who are you upsetting, and is it worth it? Is the point worth it? Making people upset. Obviously, like sensitive topics, you have to be careful with. But I think it's good practice and good discipline for us as Christians to say, we're going to say what the truth is, no matter what the consequences are. Like, that's just good. That's just being a Christian, really. And I know that there's people have different senses of humor. People have different levels of timidity and boldness, and God made us all differently, and that's okay. Not everybody has to be the one to go out and be like, I'm going to be the guy who's going to say the politically incorrect thing. God hasn't built everybody that way. But I think that's why something like the Babylon Bee is important, because we can go out and make the point or make the joke. And then, that emboldens other Christians to make the same point, or to say, hey, yeah, there are other people that think this. Or, if they're not bold enough to go and have discussions with their friends, sometimes they can just share a Babylon Bee article. And it's like, I'm not making the joke, these guys are. And so I think it is kind of a cool thing that we have been able to kind of rally up a lot of Christians to stand up and comment on things that are going on in the culture in an important way.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your backgrounds and what prepared you for this, because I suppose you didn't go to comedy school. And were you journalists? Were you youth pastors? Give me your background.
Oh, it's weird. Kyle and I have similar backgrounds in some respects. We were both in ministry. I was a worship leader for a while. He was a pastor of a church for a while. We were both in sales, like corporate supply chain sales. Not classically trained in comedy necessarily, but we all have our influences that inspired us. I think both of us really, we just Kyle, you were saying yesterday how we had decades of experience in the wacky world of American Christianity, evangelicalism, and we had so much material ready to go. All we needed was an outlet to say it. And that's what Adam Ford provided when he started the Bee. So it really just kind of came naturally once we had that avenue.
Yeah. And I think just like in terms of sense of humor, like we've consumed so much of the good, dry humor that's out there, and it was just kind of building up in us. I love mockumentaries, stuff like Christopher Guest does, like This is Spinal Tap, Mighty Wind, Best in Show. And I love that kind of stuff. Obviously, we had read The Onion before, and whenever The Onion makes a good point, you're like, oh, that's such a good point. I wish I'd thought of that. And so now we can be the ones to do that.
So take me back to a time in your lives, and Kyle, we'll start with you. Tell me about a time in your life that maybe you were going through something, and it was a tough time, but you found... God revealed a lighter side of things, and now that you look back on it, it was the humor that got you through that moment.
That's like the story of my life. Anytime there's adversity, I've gone through a lot of crazy stuff at churches. Anybody who's been in ministry, especially in small churches, it's like there's some new drama every week, whether it's something really serious or the color of the carpet, or, I remember one time we moved the order of service. So we did announcements at a different time, and there was like a whole congregational meeting called over it, and, emails going back. This is like, someone even said, like, this is one of our core distinctives as a church, that we do announcements at this point. And you can't take that too seriously. Like, you have to be able to laugh. And I think that's true of both silly things like that and then more serious times of adversity, that you have to be able to laugh at the things that are stupid so that you can take serious the things that are supposed to be taken seriously. That's what satire does, is it helps us to cut away like the dross, the traditions that have built up over time, and help us to really behold eternal things that have eternal significance in the gospel, with that much more gravity, because we've been able to kind of wipe away all the silly stuff that is built up on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Joel, what about you?
Yeah, well, Kyle's story reminded me of a time when I think I was maybe 2 weeks into being a worship leader at the church that I attend now. And I got a complaint that I had gone up on stage and I wasn't wearing a belt, and that I had made everyone stand way too long for like the second set. And it was a really big deal. And Kyle's right. Sometimes you just have to be able to laugh that stuff off. But I guess for me, I think that probably the most formative thing for me was being in the military. I was deployed overseas in Fallujah, and humor was how we coped with all of it. I mean, all the darkness and the death and the danger. We joked, we laughed, we enjoyed one another's company. And I wrote satire. I would make little comics making fun of our chain of command, drive our chain of command crazy. And So it really does help in coping when you're facing tough times. And so I think that's a big part of what's given the Babylon Bee its power. Just our culture is going through so much upheaval and so much darkness. People are craving some laughter.
So for somebody that's going through a dark time right now, for various reasons, and we can list many of them, what would you suggest to them as it relates to how can they find that? How can they reach down or pull out that humor when it's not a very humorous time in their lives? What would you recommend?
You have to purchase 200 copies of our new book, The Postmodern Pilgrims Progress. No, G.K. Chesterton has a great essay, and I think it's called "On Chasing After One's Hat," and it's called "On Running." It's called "On Running After One's Hat," and he talks about how the little inconveniences in life, as well as the big struggles that we go through, we have a tendency to think of ourselves as part of a drama, and we have a tendency to think to take ourselves very seriously. And obviously, there are some very serious things that a lot of people are going through right now. But he says that we would be, much more content and see much more wonder in life if we were to realize that we are often the star of a sitcom, and we are the butt of the joke, and that's okay. So one of the analogies he draws is, men whose hats blow off in the wind, and they look very serious and frustrated, and they chase their hat. And he says, if you can back up and step outside yourself and think more small of yourself, you can look at yourself and go, oh, that would be a really funny, like, Charlie Chaplin sketch, or classic comedy of this guy, this kind of idiot gentleman running after his hat. And then he says, someday there will be sports where we do hat chasing, and everybody chases their hat together, and it becomes this spectacle and revelry. And when I get bogged down in the weeds and I'm looking at myself and I'm so depressed about this or that, that is what I always try to say. And it's actually become a kind of a saying around our office in Southern California, our Babylon Bee office in Southern California. We'll just say, if something's going wrong, or we can't get a video produced, we can't get an article up or whatever, we'll just say, well, we are just chasing our hats today. And that's that's kind of a way that we try to keep the wonder and the humor in our lives, for sure.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So while I have you, and I know we're talking about the postmodern Pilgrims Progress, but Joel, you mentioned another book after this. So while I have you here, go ahead and tell me about that.
Yes, it's called The Babylon Bee Guide to Democracy. It's basically your comprehensive guide to the American government, how it works, how to bribe a congressman, how to rig an election, how do the three branches work. Our first book, The Guide to Wokeness, we had a lot of fun pictures and illustrations and silliness in it. I think we probably doubled that on this book. It is just a laugh out loud funny from beginning to end. And the whole team had a really great time putting it together. They did an incredible job. So I think just with it coming out, kind of coinciding with the November elections, there's going to be a lot of angst and hand wringing about our political system and our political process. So hopefully this book serves to bring a little levity to that whole thing.
Well, fantastic. This book is called The Postmodern Pilgrims Progress by Mann and Joel Berry from our friends at Salem. And gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining me today. This has been fun, and I'm definitely going to pick a copy of this thing up, and keep up the good work, all right?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Kyle and Joel, for coming onto the podcast and sharing what it takes to be the kings of satire. This has been CIA, Contagious Influences of America, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith. Please do rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. Give us 5 stars. Give us a good review. I would really appreciate it. For a full lineup of all of our episodes, just check out contagiousInfluencers.com, and you'll see them all there. And that's pretty cool. Pretty good, cool stuff. And make sure you check out our radio website at KeepTheFaith.com, where you can listen to all kinds of episodes, thematic episodes of our radio show. And let me know what you think, okay? And I want to encourage you to go out there and live that life this week and live in color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living in black and white. I'll see you next time.